It is now 5 p.m., May 1st, 2018, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the City as Housing Asset Successor. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Ms. Gomez?
Present.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Negretti?
Here.
Mayor Garcia?
Here. This is the time and place for the general public to address the City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda per Government Code Section 549.54.3. State law prohibits the Council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The Council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. I don't see anyone in the audience that would like to address the Council. Therefore, may we have declaration of closed session items by our City Attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We have several items listed this evening. However, several of them are related. Item A on behalf of the City Council is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, and the facts and circumstances are set forth pursuant to Government Code 54956.9E3. Items B and C on behalf of the City Council are related to items E, F, G, and H on behalf of the Airport Authority. It all deals with pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and the case names and case numbers are all fully set forth on the agenda. Item D on behalf of the City Council is related to item A on behalf of the Airport Authority. Again, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and again, the case names and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. To the extent there's reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the 6 o'clock regular session.
Thank you. We will now recess to our closed session, and our regular session convenes at 6 p.m. It is 6 o'clock now. We will be starting. It is now 6 o'clock, May 1st, 2018, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. In the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the City as Housing Asset Successor. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Ms. Gomez?
Present.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Negretti?
Here.
Mayor Garcia?
Here.
All present.
May we have closed session announcements by our City Attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had several items on the agenda this evening. However, several of these items are related. Item A on behalf of the city was anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, and pursuant to Government Code 54956.9E3, the facts and circumstances are set forth on the agenda. Item B and C on behalf of the city were related to items E, F, G, H, and I on behalf of the Airport Authority. That is all pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and the case names and case numbers are all fully set forth on the agenda. And then lastly, item D on behalf of the City Council is related to item I on behalf of the Airport Authority. Again, pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. And again, the case names and case numbers are fully set forth on the agenda. At this time, there is no reportable action with respect to any of those items.
Thank you. We will have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be delivered by Pastor Dane Davis of First Christian Church, and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Police Chief Rick Bessinger. So please stand.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. One of the best loved Proverbs is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we come to you boldly in Jesus' name this evening, asking that you would give us wisdom and guidance. We come to you, O Lord, through prayer on this week, where on Thursday, Lord, there will be millions around the country lifting up prayers to you as part of the National Day of Prayer that has been declared every year since 1952 in this nation. And we come to you in prayer, O God, because prayer is about access. You give us the privilege of having access to your wisdom and your guidance and your strength when we need it the most. And so, Lord, we come humbly to you tonight, asking that you would give us your wisdom, that you would give us your guidance, that you would give us your strength so we can move forward in the city of Victorville in a way that is honoring and pleasing to you. Thank you for this honor and privilege. Be with the city council, unite them, encourage and strengthen them, and give them wisdom for the decisions they face tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we do not have any proclamations. However, we do have a very special presentation. We will have our city clerk swearing in our new city manager, Mr. Keith Metzler.
Testing. I, Keith Metzler, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
I will bear true faith
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the
Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and I would like to say publicly that I am so sorry that I was not here on the last Tuesday, our last meeting rather, and but I was the fourth vote, and he knows that, and it doesn't matter. I know there's always differences of opinion, but after 22 years of loyal service to our city and to our people, there is no one better than Mr. Messler to be our city manager. So congratulations, and I am so very, very happy for you. Now I'm very happy to continue. This evening we do not have, oh, I'm sorry, I think I'm jumping over. May we have our city clerk present the agenda to council and any revisions to the agenda, please?
The City Council of the City of Victorville welcomes the public's participation in tonight's meeting. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item or any items that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments made during the public hearings, written communications, or public comment section of the agenda are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less, as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the City Council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of a City Council meeting by willfully interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with the removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9, Penal Code Section 403. Thank you for your cooperation. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council. There are no revisions.
Thank you. This evening we do not have any appeal hearings. We also do not have any public hearings. So we will move on to consent calendar. And consent calendar items C1 through C8, C1 through C6 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be removed for discussion. Does anyone have any items that they would like to have
I'll
removed?
move approval of consent calendar.
Yes, I have 3 items, but they're all just really comments. C1, C2, and C5.
I'll second the motion so we can continue with comments.
So for C1, I'd like to inform everyone that there's a mortgage assistance program that assists qualifying residents to obtain the down payment assistance. This program is great for those of you who cannot afford the house payment, but cannot afford the down payment. This agenda item is another example of how the MAP program assisted a first-time homeowner with a down payment assistance with low and moderately low income. This participation in 2010 qualified for a $20,000 loan from the Neighborhood Stabilization Program NSP Housing Funds. If anyone is interested in obtaining more information, remember that as your legislative representative, I'm here to bridge the gap, so feel free to reach out to me or reach out to the city. For item C2, on April 16th, Monday, I just requested to have some more information in regards to the PERS obligations to date, but I haven't received anything, so I'm asking staff that before we continue on with the commercial demands continuously, please don't forget and provide me with those requests. And for C5, on April 17, 2018, the city agenda is discussion about Victorville Fire Department special compensation, and it was recommended that the city council approve the special compensation for fire department classifications. During this time, Councilmember Negrete abstained, and for the record, I want to state that it may be tempting to abstain because of concerns about making an unpopular decision or simply not knowing which decision is best. Nevertheless, making decisions is what officials are elected to do. It is manifestly unfair and unethical to abstain or otherwise put one's colleagues in the position of taking the heat for a necessary but unpopular decision. Thank you.
Call for the question.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to written communications. Item D1, establish a budget for Foxborough Rail Contract Services. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council adopt Resolution Number 18-024, amending the annual budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 by approving an additional appropriation of funds to establish a budget for Foxborough Railroad lead track.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff by council members?
Yes, I have a question. Will the responsible entity repeat what the motions will be clearly so that the public understands what's going to be moved, seconded, and so forth on every single question? Thank you. That was a question, so I'm waiting for a response whether we are going to or we're not going to.
Move approval of item D1.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Negretti. Any discussion?
Yeah, we have to have the comment part of it. It was failed to be commented on, so now I have a comment. For the benefit of the public, briefly, this item is in regards to the January 2018 approval of a formation district. Since the city doesn't have a budgeted item list today for approval, we're going to be adding expenditures and revenues to be received on July 1st. That's the first date, that's my understanding.
Call for the vote.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D2, amendment number 1 to Albert Webb and Associates for water pipeline replacement, small diameter project. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council approve amendment number 1 in the amount of $150,285 to the consultant professional service provider agreement with Albert Webb and Associates for the design of water pipeline replacement project, SD-01.
Any questions of staff or from council members? And I'll start with Mr. Negretti. Ms. Gomez?
Yeah, for all capital improvement projects, did the city conduct a cost-benefit analysis? And was it done for this specific project? If so, I'd like to know what was the net present value of the cost-benefit analysis, because it's not in here, but I'm assuming a CIP hopefully would have that.
No, we haven't done that type of analysis for this particular project with a net present value, but for every project we evaluate the benefits versus the cost. It's different for every class of CIP projects that we evaluate.
But did you say for this project it wasn't, but you did outweigh the costs versus the benefits?
We didn't calculate the net present value. We didn't do that analysis, but we look at the benefits and the cost.
Okay, so if you do the cost benefit and you leave out the net present value, if we have a negative value, that would be something that we probably wouldn't want to do. However, I'm looking at this project, and clearly this project is to help assist with the water and the pipelines, and I'm assuming that they're, from my viewing of one of the infrastructures, we're taking out the plastic and putting on something more sustainable.
Councilmember Gomez and members of the council, if I might, cost-benefit analysis are certainly a type of valuation to be done for a number of different items, not so much for an existing public infrastructure piece such as a water system. In fact, more so in this particular case, the need to make these improvements are more so driven from a condition assessment that's done maybe regularly. I'm not sure the frequency in this case, but a condition assessment has been done to determine that in this particular case, the pipe is of poor condition, likely due to age, and also likely is in an area that has probably not the strongest of fire flow. So more so driven from operational and condition issues is why this has been identified as one of the replacement items that actually ties into your cost of service study when you develop your rates. So it's more so supported through the cost of service as an item to be done largely because of depreciation over time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't have any cards from anyone. So can we have a motion, please?
I move staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Negretti. Any further comments?
Yeah, for this project that is a part of the capital improvement program, the city has identified the need to replace many old plastic tubing with more reliable. For the public's information, this is the beginning stages, so it's only a design that we're looking at. There's an attached map where the public can see if the streets that they're going to be working on for water improvement actually fall under your particular streets. Thank you.
Motion by
Question.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D3, grant of easement to Southern California Edison. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council grant an easement within Lot A of tract map number 14992 along Pena Road, north of Sierra Road, to SCE. Authorize staff to work with SCE on easement document revisions and execute said agreement.
Thank you. Any questions of staff by council members?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I understand Lot A is owned by the city.
Yes.
How, it's not a part of the subdivision, how did the city end up owning Lot A?
It was actually created as part of that subdivision.
Okay.
It's part of a tract.
Anyone else? I do not have any cards. Therefore, can we have a motion?
Move approval of D3.
Second.
Can I repeat the second? Okay.
Any comments?
Yeah, for the benefit of the public and those viewing the city's general meeting today being live streamed, an easement is a non-possessory right to use and enter basically where one landowner may enjoy the land of the other. And in this item, the city is the owner of the property, and Edison requires access because there's a housing developer that needs to append electricity and other services to the housing units that will be developed. And council is being asked to grant such an easement, and this is on Pena Road, north of Sierra Road in Victorville. Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D4, Mariposa Road traffic safety measures. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council receive and file the report.
Thank you. I don't have any cards on this one here either. Are there any questions of staff by council members?
I have one, Brian. In my discussions with Mr. Marks, I thought he came up with an interesting idea, and I don't see it on your list of options. Maybe you considered it, and or maybe I didn't see where you considered it. But one of the thoughts was to put actually a three-way stop at Yates and Mariposa to create a stop in the middle of that long run from Cottonwood up to the off-ramp at Palmdale Road. I thought it was a nice idea. I liked it. I mean, it would take just a little extra time to build your speed back up to 70 miles an hour in that little half-mile distance. Did you consider that?
Well, we didn't state that explicitly in the report, but we did mention the warrants for a possible future traffic signal, but the same data would be used to study warrants for a possible always stop. But I just have to make the comment that we want to make sure that if whatever we do, that it does meet warrants. We don't want to install either an always stop or a traffic signal if it doesn't meet the warrants.
I wouldn't even advocate a signal. I think the idea of an absolute stop is a good idea. And for crying out loud, if we have a stop at La Paz going across towards Pebble Beach Road, and there's absolutely no side coming or oncoming traffic at that intersection, you know the one I mean, right?
I know where it is.
La Paz, and you make a left onto Seneca, but if you go straight, there's a traffic light there that stops you, and there is no traffic. There is no possible reason to stop at that intersection. We've got a light there, but we can't put a stop sign at Mariposa and Yates. I mean, one meets traffic code and the other one needs a study, or help me out with that. I'm having a hard time.
Generally, the warrants are certain thresholds that have to be met by volume, how many vehicles go through an approach of an intersection every hour, and there are very well-defined requirements that define the warrants. I'm just cautioning the council that I would not recommend installing either a signal or any stop signs if they don't clearly meet traffic warrants. But we are going to conduct a study, and then we'll see the results of that study.
Does the council have the option to override and exercise our own judgment in a situation like this?
The council has the authority to direct staff to install traffic control devices. I wouldn't recommend that because...
I hear that.
But they do have the authority.
I think the people who drive Mariposa might disagree. To some that drive at 70 and 80 would like to not have a stop sign, but the rest of us might think it's a good idea. Well, we'll think about it.
Yeah, would staff inform everyone, for the record, more about the license plate readers and how and where they will be placed, when they will be up and running, and what is the anticipated costs of the City of Victorville will be assuming when all this is up and running?
What we're proposing to install are called speed enforced by radar signs. That it was just a sign that would advise people that there is enforcement there by the police. And then in addition to that, I think what you're referring to is there's something called a radar speed feedback sign, and it displays your speed. As a motorist is driving along the road, it will display their speed. And this can also record the speeds, so we'll have data on what the actual speeds of the road are, but it doesn't get any data from license plates. It just measures the speeds of the vehicles.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I don't have an estimated cost on that. It's not an exorbitant cost, but we could get you that information.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll make the motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Negretti. Any further comments or questions?
Yes. Concerned residents have brought this item for about 6 months now. Discussions have ensued between city administration, the police force, and it has been concluded by these entities to place on the intersection red flashers to be placed far in advance on the road for long-distance lookers to become aware of the roadways and conditions. There are talks of conducting a speed survey, and if the speed needs to be altered, it will be brought up to the residents in a public hearing, and it will be adopted by ordinance to maintain state and vehicle code regulations. The police department will also be purchasing technology to detect and read license plates to assist with the flow of traffic, and this tool will also be used for solving crime. that is the license plate readers.
If I could just provide a clarification, we're not proposing to install any devices that would read license plates. They would simply measure speeds of vehicles on the road.
That's what I read on the report, so I'm just reporting back what I read. But if you're clarifying it for me, thank you.
Anyone else?
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D5, initiating proceedings to fix, levy, and collect water standby charges for fiscal year 2017-2018. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the Board of Directors of the Victorville Water District approve resolution numbers VWD 18-003 and VWD 18-004.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff by council members?
Yeah, I have several questions. There was history to WID 1 and talks about WID 2 fix, raise fees, place levies. Is this item related to the wastewater study that was recently approved? And WID 1, there is a no exceed $10 per acre or per parcel. And for WID 2, there is not to exceed $30 per acre. Would you explain why WID 1 and WID 2 are different in amounts or fees that are going to be charged, and would you expand on when the hearing, the notifications, and the public hearings will be agendized, or give me at least a ballpark? And my last question is, many residents are concerned that they're getting a wastewater increase, a solid waste increase, and now a potable water. How many city residents are using WID 1 and WID 2 that are affected, and how many in percentages are not going to be affected because they don't connect to the city's sources, water sources, that is?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council. To answer the first question, whether or not this is related to wastewater, this has nothing to do with wastewater, no relationship to wastewater. This is actually dealing more specific to your domestic potable water system. That's actually your drinking water. And what this item does is it breaks out for what we call WID 1 and WID 2. WID 1 is an acronym for Water Improvement District Number 1, which is the former Victor Valley Water District. WID 2 is Water Improvement District Number 2, and that was the former boundaries of the Baldy Mesa water system. The two combined effectively are under the City of Victorville Water District's purview and authority. So in these two items, they are similar. That's why we put them all on the same item, but they are specific to the respective geographic boundaries. In the case of WID 1 and WID 2, the charges that we're talking about here are what are called standby water charges. And effectively what these are actual assessments on the property to property owners that don't have actual service, meaning they don't have an actual meter, they're not actually drawing off the system, but they enjoy the benefit of having a public water system within, I believe it's 300 feet of their property. So this is not a double charge, it's just a charge to those that enjoy that benefit, that have the ability to connect into that system at a point in time if they choose to develop their property. So in the case of WID 1, I believe the maximum value that can be charged, it's outlined in the staff report, and the maximum amount is $10 per acre, and that's the actual rate we currently charge. In the case of WID 2, I believe the maximum charge is $30 an acre, but we actually charge $15 in that case. They're similarly natured charges. WID 2 is different because there were actually bonds issued in WID 2. I believe those bonds were issued by the Baldy Mesa Water District as part of its administration and build out of the system. But effectively, this item tonight, adopting these two resolutions, sets forward in motion the process that we have to go through annually to affix these to the property tax rolls. So with that, adopting these resolutions tonight. You start the process. I don't have the exact schedule unless it's in the staff report, but I suspect that we'll come back at the next regularly scheduled meeting with the next steps to actually have the public hearings and moving forward so that these get in place before the tax levy, county tax levy.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
I do not have any speaker cards, or is there someone else that had any questions? No? I do not have any speaker cards. Therefore, can we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Are there any other questions or comments? None?
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D6, Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Victorville and the Victor Valley Union High School District agreeing to fund one school resource officer. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation, please.
That the City Council ratify the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Victorville and the Victor Valley Union High School District for the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, and authorize the city manager or his designee to process all documents required for the agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions of of staff from council members?
Yes. How much is the county contract going to be offset?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, in this particular item, this is an offset. This actually seeks reimbursement to the order of $180,805, which represents 75% of the total cost of an officer. That time that the high school district is reimbursing us for is an actual amount of time that that officer would be dedicated, in this case, to the high school district.
And that includes one deputy and one marked vehicle?
Correct.
I'm sorry. My question was, how much is the county contract going to be offset? I read those information facts, and we didn't have information in regards to the offset for the county, and so that's what I was looking for. I know how much the cost is. I read the report, but I was just wondering how much is the county going to be offset, because those are one of the questions that derive from that reading.
I'm not sure that the county is going to be offset. In fact, the county is not going to be offset. The way the contractual relationship works, and we approved the larger contract involving us and the county of San Bernardino, the sheriff department, at the last council meeting. I don't remember the exact number, but it was about $25 million plus or minus. So that contract, under that contract, that's basically what we pay to the county for that service. In the Schedule A that's attached to that contract, it identifies all of the officers and service that you're getting under that contract. And that Schedule A also identifies the school resource officers, particularly 4 of them. And in fact, this item and the item subsequent to this, they're actually extracted from that particular contract. So we pay the larger contract to the county, and we effectively get reimbursed for those officers and support units that are being made available to the school districts. So we get reimbursed directly from the school districts. There's no offset that I'm aware of that the county offers us.
The reason I'm asking is also in our conversations we had the discussion of SRO, and when we contract with the county and we allow for the school district, Victor Elementary or Union High School, I was told that there was an offset, and it was better because the police have access to anything and everything, like Harris, you were talking to me about that. So that's why I was asking what the offset was.
Right, and so I guess to answer the question, we get charged for the full 100%, and the offset is the amount that we would be receiving from the school district, which is, for this particular item, totals the $180,000.
75%
of the total cost.
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
I do not have any speaker cards. Therefore, can we have a motion, please?
Move approval of D6.
Second.
Any other discussion? None?
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D7, Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Victorville and the Victor Elementary School District agreeing to fund 3 school resource officers. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council ratify the MOU between the City of Victorville and Victor Elementary School District for the period of July 2nd, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, and authorize the city manager or his designee to process all documents required for the agreement.
Thank you. Questions of staff by council members?
Yes, so the value of 3 officers and 2 marked vehicles is less than 1 SRO with a marked vehicle. We're talking about the high school and the elementary. Why is the cost so distinct? I would have thought 3 officers and 2 marked vehicles would be much more than the other way around. And so I'm just wondering what happened there. It's a good deal, I mean.
It is. If you look at this particular, the value of this contract at $584,000, it is, I wouldn't say it's exactly 3 times, but when you only have the 2 vehicles instead of 3 for the 3 provides the offset. So it's close to about 3 times. Yeah, for the same 75-25 split.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, can we have a motion, please?
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Any other discussion or questions? Anyone? No?
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D8, Legal Services Agreement for the City Attorney. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The City Council designated an ad hoc committee comprised of Mayor Pro Tem Cox and Councilmember Kennedy to negotiate and review the terms of the city attorney contract with Green Dvoranowski, LLP, the firm. It is the recommendation of the ad hoc committee that the City Council consider approval of the proposed legal services agreement for the city attorney.
Thank you. Questions of staff by council members?
I would just like to say, as a member of the ad hoc committee, we reviewed the contract that's been in place but has not been reviewed or amended for some years. We considered the skill levels, the staff support, the long experience of Green Dvoranowski with the city of Victorville, the many, many, many issues they have worked with the city through these last, almost 30 years. We certainly recommend continuing the service agreement, and the contract is part of the staff report, and have no reservations on recommending approval, and I'll make the motion.
Now, this is a 3-year contract?
Correct.
It would be a 3-year contract with a 30-day notice,
Correct. 30-day notice for termination for cause.
termination clause. Other questions?
That holding the price down, the 3 years was an exchange to hold the price down. Anticipated what it would cost and looking at what other agencies are paying, and that was a trade-off that was well worth it.
I do not have any speaker cards, so can we have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments?
I don't have any issues with the survey agreement. We don't need a contract. There's been none for many, 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 many years, and I don't see why or what the motive was, and even why we had to agendize it. It wasn't for many years, over a decade. I'm not sure what the purpose is today to have this. I can't foresee the future, but I certainly can see that we haven't had it for many years, which is telling. I mean, no one's trying to fire the city attorney. He's doing his job. And so for me, There is no changes. There is no fee increases. The retainers are exactly the same. So I don't understand why we have this agendized, and I don't think we need that contract. And like I said, we haven't had it for many years.
Other comments? Call for the question.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Ms. Gomez voting no.
Now we move on to item D9. Discuss status of transition to city fire. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council receive the update from staff regarding the transition from County Fire Services to City Fire.
Are there any questions of staff by council members?
I'd like to hear from the staff on this particular issue.
Yes, it is appropriate.
Well, Mayor, City Council, before you tonight on the staff report is intended to be in chronological order, kind of the highlights of the communications between the city and the county as the city is trying to progress to in-house city fire. With the only shortage I think that you have from this detailed list of kind of what I would consider milestones in the process of communication are items that took place after I drafted the staff report. And so if you, on page 246, kind of the second to last paragraph, I indicated that a meeting had been scheduled for Friday, April 27th between the city staff and ConFire. As what was requested by the executive board at ConFire. That meeting did take place Friday at 9 a.m. down at the ConFire office. We were able to distribute all the requested information to the executive director of ConFire, the gentleman by the name of Mike Bell. He did receive that information. We actually got a tour of the facility, which was the first time I had an opportunity to do so. And we believe that he has already distributed the information that we gave him to the individual chief members. Their executive board is a representative of chiefs of the 6 agencies, and so I believe they've received the information that was requested in the meeting. So we showed up that very Friday after and provided that information. Subsequently, we identified that the other major hurdle for our progress would be to secure a short-term contract extension with County Fire. We have had a variety of meetings leading to that as identified here in the timeline. But an update to what you have in front of you, Keith Metzler and myself met with Fire Chief Mark Hartwig just this past Monday in the county CAO's office. And in that meeting, the county chief offered to the city a 9-month extension, which is what we had been discussing. As you recall, the city's position was that we were requesting a 6-month extension. The county countered with a 12-month extension, and the county chief showed up and offered a 9-month extension, which was good. We left the meeting feeling like we had made some progress and that we were headed in the right direction. However, the only outstanding item I would say is negotiating the cost of that 9-month extension. What has been provided to the city, I think, is a bit costly, and there's some areas where that may still be open for negotiation between the two parties. In essence, the cost provided for the 9 months amounted to about what we paid this year for 12 months. And so I believe we still have some work to do as far as refining those costs down to what we think is more of a continuation of service as was requested by the county. In light of that, we have scheduled a subsequent meeting for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with the county chief, and I believe he might be bringing the county CEO. I'm not sure of that, but County Chief Hartwig will be meeting here with City Manager Metzler and myself tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to what what I believe to kind of continue the talks and try to come up with one, contract terms, initial start of contract terms, and two, better refining the cost that the city would be obligated to pay for the 9-month extension. So with that, I am available to answer any questions that you may have, and I believe as City Manager Metzler has been with me through this this journey, he's available as well.
Now, did I hear correctly? You said that they're going to bill us the same amount for 9 months as they did for 12 months?
Right now, that's the total cost that's been presented to us. That the cost presented for the 9 months is almost exactly what we paid in the current year for the whole 12 months. So I just believe we have more work to do in sitting down with the county and going through the numbers and trying to get them to justify why they think they need, why the costs need to be that high. He briefly shared with me some of the reasons why. I think it just needs further discussion. I think, and the fact that he's accepted a meeting for tomorrow morning that we had originally scheduled for next week, I think is a step in the right direction, and we are working diligently, I think, with them to try to really come about some numbers that really truly reflect the true cost for the county for those 9 months. I would like to add, though, I had mentioned in the staff report, we actually, for the purpose of the recruitment, we hired an outside company that's doing pre-screening for us. And so in the last bullet on page 247, I mentioned that the engineer and firefighter paramedic positions have not been opened. And we have not seen a lot of activity on our side yet, but the company that we hired to do the pre-screening has provided me with these numbers that folks that have engaged in the process and want an opportunity to work with the city of Victorville. For the position of captain, we have now, and this is up-to-date numbers for the last two bullet points that you have there. For the position of captain, we have received 33 applications. For the position of engineer, we have received 38 applications. In the position of firefighter paramedic to date, we have received 49 applications. And so we are going, there's enough attention on this from a national level. I believe regionally folks are interested to see what's happening, and they're submitting applications. So then it takes some time to get to screen those applications, get those folks through background check, get them trained up on our apparatus and our region. But I have no doubt that we would be able to reach the goal of fully staffed fire station with these types of numbers coming in on the application side. This is early. The positions have only really been listed for a couple of weeks. I expect those numbers to probably double between now and the next 2 months, at the very least.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This particular item, I'm glad it's on the agenda because I asked for something like this not too long ago, but I would like to thank the city staff and everyone that's been working on this, but I don't like doing things this way. This is not how things should be done. Initially, we voted back in December from a very curious motion to start our city fire department and continue to negotiate with the county. Since that time, I have been asking again and again for a best and final offer, a side-by-side cost comparison, whatever it is. If you will, I feel like I'm getting apples and oranges here. And when that happens, I'm going to get very disappointed, because if the decision has already been made to go to city fire, I didn't vote for that particularly. I voted to go along with that motion, which is both start the city fire department because of timing and continue negotiating. So the negotiating with the county, I'd like to ask someone, anybody on staff, is it fair to say that all these conversations that have occurred with the county since December, whenever it was, are we somewhere different than where we were initially? Because the reports that we have initially, I believe, may not reflect the current situation. So I'm just wondering, are we is the reports that we've been given, are those still accurate? As far as a comparison between what the county is offering and what the city is saying the cost of a city fire department. Has there been any change since then?
I believe I can answer part of that. So the analysis that was provided at I want to believe it was the January 16th meeting, where City Council did provide that direction to staff to continue with staffing up of the city fire department. There actually have been some updates to those numbers. We were able to, in discussions with CalPERS, recognize that the rates for our pension program ended up being closer to 18% for our pension program. I think in the original analysis it was 23. I think that the assumption was 23%. I believe Janelle's she worked on that study with the Citygate group, and so the numbers actually end up yielding actually a lower cost after we've had CalPERS recalculate those numbers for us. And the assumption that we were making as far as the total county cost were in advance of their final distribution of their numbers. I have in my hand actually an estimate that the county provided us for the cost for next year. It's about a little bit over $1 million more than what they charged us in the current year. You're right, we did not have that information at the time of the January report. We assumed, we had to make an assumption as to what the inflation rate was going to be in the county contract, and it actually yielded to be a slightly higher once the county staff received information from their pension program, which ended up being a 5% increase over what was anticipated. Other than that, other assumptions that may have changed was purchase of apparatus. The original study assumed that a cash purchase for the apparatus. We have now considered lease options on that and stretching those payments over the years, which have actually improved the numbers significantly on a year-to-year basis. But yeah, those are the changes that have occurred since the January analysis. And then with this final receipt of information from the county, the cost that we would incur on a 1 year, just for the next year, did show up to be in the $14 million range. Actually, I have it here.
And George, what was the difference in the head count between that $14 million proposal and our plan at $13 million?
Right.
Get closer to the microphone too, please.
Oh, sorry. So the cost from the county proposes a staffing level of 54 personnel, 54.2 personnel. And the original cost estimate for that amount was $13,026,000. That's what we based our assessment on in January. The information that I received yesterday afternoon as to what that amount would be is just over 14 million. So their costs have actually increased. 54 for the 54, same 54 bodies. Their cost actually increased.
How many will we have?
64.
64.
Correct. Because
more for $1 million less.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess what I was asking for last time, because we had an offer at $12 million, was the last offer I saw, but that was the same day as a council meeting, so I wasn't able to really get into it. That's what I was asking for, was a review. So I believe that where we were when we started this in 2016 is not where we are now, because obviously we considered FP5 as a viable alternative, and that was being recommended to the city council. While I have issues with that, it seemed there was some goodness there. So going forward, this is not something that can be taken lightly. The contract is supposed to expire here in 2 months, And just like I would predict in a situation like this, there are a lot of priorities the city has, and this is going to take a lot of time, effort, money, etc. So I'm uncomfortable that we never really got a side by side. So that's it.
I would only suggest that staff addendums and do the comparison. It's clear what you've been doing.
Yeah, we have a lot, and I think what Councilmember Negretti is asking for is something we had already provided. Trying to pull it up, and my computer's a little bit slow here. So we can just recirculate it and perhaps answer more directly and address the comments that Councilmember Negretti had brought up tonight.
Very well. Okay. I do not have any speaker cards. Or do I? No, I don't have any speaker cards. So can we have a motion? Or just receive and file?
Could have a motion to receive and file. You've been doing that lately.
Yeah, I have motion. Mhm. We can do a motion
Yeah, just to receive and file.
just to receive and file.
I'll make a
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments?
Yeah, so I ask that all public business meetings that city administration is aware of or will be discussed from now on provide awareness to the entire council of such meetings and negotiations. I am not aware of anyone being kept in the dark to some aspects of city business in relation to fire. Please keep council, including myself, in the know by sending an email minimum. Unfortunately, this has not been the case, and I happen to find out about the Fire administrative meeting by asking when the entity would be meeting, despite council members already having knowledge of this. This last meeting, staff informed other council members about this type of business. So please be more transparent of city businesses. You have 5 council members, not only 4, that are interested in fire and city-related business. I ask this on behalf of the residents, the taxpayers, and stakeholders, not only for a select few or the status quo. Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
What does it mean to receive and file? Are we receiving and file the information that's reported by Mr. Harris? That's on the report. Is that what we're doing?
It's just a formal acknowledgement that you have received Mr. Harris's report.
Got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries with Mr. Negretti abstaining.
I believe I received a card for D7 and I missed it. I'll pick it up during public comments.
What was 7? What was 7?
School district.
Thank you.
Now we move on to item D10. Discussion of increasing purchasing authority of the city manager. Discussion of increasing purchasing authority of the city manager. Using myself here. It's all running together. Discussion of increasing purchasing authority of the city manager. Madam Clerk, can you please read the recommendation?
That the City Council discuss the pros and cons of increasing the purchasing authority of the city manager.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff by council members?
Well, I asked to have this on the agenda, so I'll advocate the idea that we raise his threshold to $50,000. I think we spend some amount of time on transactions that are small for this size city that the city manager should have the authority to handle under his own purchasing authority.
I don't have a question, I have a comment when we get after the motion in a second.
Anyone else? I don't have any speaker cards on this item. So can we have a motion before we have discussion?
I move. Staff recommendation.
Second.
That to raise it, Jim?
To raise it.
To 50,000?
Yes, and I know that there may be some comments, but I wanted to explain, when I was called back to the city, time ago, 2009, found out that the city manager's spending authority was either $100,000 or $125,000, and I believe department heads were $50,000. I had requested authorization to cancel all contracts, revise all the contracts, and then I had found out that even an over expenditure, although I considered these were large numbers, I recommended and the council approved cutting back the manager's salaries to the manager's authorization to spend to 25 and department heads 10. That was done specifically to get the house in order, with an understanding from the city council that that was unreasonably low and that it was going to interfere with the conduct of carrying out business on a daily basis. But everyone got busy and everybody ignored it, although the determination at the time was it would probably be maybe up to 2 years before it was reinstated. I quite frankly forgot all about it until it was raised not too long ago. And right now it's 25 still, is that correct?
That is correct.
And 10. And so when Mr. Kennedy suggested this, I thought it had been done long ago, and it had not. So it's certainly time to do it. That's why it got so low.
I have a motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments?
Yes. City administration already functions under the maximum amount of power that's rendered to them by the city council. I don't agree with less transparency from the council to the people. This move is a council majority move to exclude the public from looking at bids, purchases, and other city-related business that will not be agendized and kept away from the residents, the organizations, and the city businesses out of the loop of what is happening inside the walls of City Hall. I strongly oppose more policies that keep city residents, businesses, and organizations in the dark about their tax-paying dollars. Enough is enough. We don't want to be the next City of Bell, nor allude to it with this type of corruption and lack of transparency to the people, and for that matter, any legislative body that is voted by the people, but against the right of the people to have city business agendized and out in the open as it has been since September 1962. Enough is enough. We the people want more transparency, more accountability, our elected officials, and more involvement from them. I'm sorry, I wasn't finished. I was catching up my reading here. To email council, go to the city's website on victorville.gov, victorvilleca.gov. Under the tab, you click City Council, and then you click City Council Member, and you find all of our emails. Or you can look at each of us, our names. For the mayor is G. Garcia. For the mayor pro temp is J. Cox. For council member Kennedy is J. Kennedy. For Negretti is E. Negretti. And they're all at victorvilleca.gov. Mine is BAGOMEZ at victorvilleca.gov. Thank you.
Just want to comment on this. I don't believe this has anything to do with power. This is simply administrative authority to run the city. The fact is, the vast, vast majority of our spending, we never exercise voting authority over, except when we pass and approve the consent calendar. So there's huge amounts of money that are spent in this city that we don't sit and pick over. The issue is, when does the number get big enough that the city manager wants to have our blessing on the transaction? I happen to have a lot of confidence in our manager and in our past managers at making those good judgments. We had a past manager who brought us a transaction that was well within his spending authority, but he believed we should know about it, so he asked us to look at it. I think it's perfectly reasonable to set the authority at $50,000. It's the same as Apple Valley. It's the same as Hesperia. It's probably well below other cities of our size. At $50,000, I think it's a perfectly appropriate way to run the city. The other thing that's critically important about understanding how we manage the money of the city is to understand that we do it through a budget process and through our internal control processes. Have to have purchasing processes. We have to have an accounting department that knows how to properly handle transactions. That's what we have to rely on to know that our funds are being spent properly. For us to sit here and presume that we can look at every transaction and decide whether it's an appropriate spending decision is just foolish. We aren't frankly qualified for that. We're qualified for big decisions. We're qualified for policy issues. We're qualified for the overall administration, oversight, control process of this city. That's our job, not to sit and pick over small transactions. So I think this is a very appropriate step to take.
Call for question. Oh, I'm sorry.
I agree with every single word.
A motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Ms. Gomez voting no.
Now we move on to item D11. Discussion to eliminate council members' travel budget. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Any action is at the discretion of the City Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff by council members on this item?
I asked to have it here. I think it's a good idea to eliminate this travel budget, which I believe is being used in a very unbalanced way, and I think individual travel decisions by council members ought to be approved by the council.
The travel budget of the council members have come forward. It's a fairly small amount. My understanding is that the current policy allows each council member $1,200 a year for travels and meals and so on. I think that's reasonable. I don't think that a council member should be able to borrow from another council member's fund if they can plan the year out just like we plan a budget, and they can know when they will spend the $1,200, with the understanding that these have to be city related. Individual can't decide they want to attend something that's non-city related. I think we have the rules in place. I recently was going to attend an event and found out that the money had been expended, and I thought it was reserved for each council member. That I would agree that if we can't reserve it for each council member and that council member be responsible, then we do away with it, period. But I think we can accomplish the same thing by having a reasonable amount. And then, of course, there's the amount for the league meetings. And I think the league meetings serve a great purpose. But I think the council ought to look at, there's a league meeting in the northern part of California, generally San Francisco. There's a league meeting in Southern California, generally Long Beach. And I don't think that, and they have the same program generally. we get all the information. There ought to be budgeting for when it's in the Southern California, not the Northern California. I know a lot of councils look at this as a vacation that they've worked hard and deserved. I don't think so. I think it has to be for the benefit of the city. I also think we need to amend the policies. There's no need to go to a league meeting and have 3 council members sitting in the same room. One person can hear the information, report it back. Same thing for staff. I know a lot of cities that send a minimal number depending upon the city's involvement. Some cities send all the council members and staff. I still think we need some work on this. And if we can agree to work it out, if we can agree to be reasonable, if we can agree to be reasonable with all the council members, then I'm for looking at this. If we can't come to any agreement, then I also would just say do away with it. So, but I would urge you to be open-minded and talk about it first. And while any action is at the discretion of the council at this time, I hope the council will have a good discussion on this. Thank you.
Well, my understanding was that League of Cities, any new member was entitled or required to attend, but not every single year they're in office, unless you're going because you feel that you're actually learning and coming back educated, you know, as far as policies and procedures and decorum and everything that's involved with being a council member. I attended one, and I'm very pleased to say that I believe I learned as much as I feel that I needed, and I don't need to continue going.
So I have a couple of questions. So council wants to increase the manager's spending limit without council approval and cut council travel budgets that we receive through travel with all department heads and travel budgets, but we don't look at those. So when was the last time we actually look at all department heads' budget, when they travel, what they're traveling, what their learning status is? To me, I like to tell everyone and make everyone aware that's watching online and on my Facebook, and that's actually sitting here. Notice the hypocrisy that Councilmember Kennedy posits. Let administration expenditures be $50,000. So we raise it because we trust administration and we're an oversight board. And yet we pick at council members under $5,000, $5,000. So if you don't see it, I'm trying to make it very explicit. Not everybody learns. I'm not 81 and I'm not the mayor. And unfortunately, it doesn't take me once and say that I have it all down. And yeah, I'm the one that's been traveling and I've been learning, and I'm actually in the city. And many of the residents have seen me because I door knock at their doors as well. And it's not because I'm campaigning. It's because everything that we're taught outside of these 4 walls, outside of the city of Victorville, and unto other cities, I travel. And all of those travels don't get expended to the city. You can pull my 700s and notice how I get a lot of scholarships, and I don't stay within the boundaries of a stale, at times, ideology of people thinking that we all are cookie cutters and learn the same exact ways. If you notice the different dynamics between all of us here, I'm one of the youngest. I'm not the oldest, and I don't learn like they learn, unfortunately. I'm not any of their granddaughters or grandsons or any of that nature. So to me, if you start looking at the hypocrisy, it's very explicit. And if you haven't noticed it, start picking it up since day one of my councilship in this position.
Madam Mayor.
My concern is just taxpayers' money, you know, and we have to have transparency, and we keep repeating that, transparency, and just doing the best that we can for our city and our taxpayers. That's all.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a comment here. Everything that Councilmember Gomez just said is quite frankly laughable. I sit here meeting after meeting listening to this, and I thank you for bringing this up, Jim. Thank you very much for bringing this up, because this is an embarrassment to our city to have this issue in the newspaper. This is about service to the community. That's one thing you never hear. It's not, there is no, we got a lot of issues in the city of Victorville, and I really am concerned about being effective in doing this job in the limited time that we have in council chambers to do the business of the city the most effective way possible. And here we are again, wasting our time on a ridiculous issue like this. But we have to police ourselves. Otherwise, people will start taking advantage. You give them an inch, they take a mile. This benefit becomes an entitlement. This is just one minor little issue, and it's a joke. We're being accused of being unethical. I believe the comment was the hypocrisy. This shouldn't even be on the agenda like the conduct policy, like a lot of other things. But we have to come in here and listen to these accusations that are not founded in any basis of fact. We have someone who is not prepared to be up here questioning every agenda item, making accusations, calling us names again and again and again. And I would just like to remind the council that these kind of items, we can't even have a reasonable conversation about this. We're not dealing with a reasonable person that's taking advantage of this. And so, rather than belabor this issue again and again and listen to the ridiculous, bizarre ramblings of someone who doesn't know how to be disciplined for something like this, is a joke to me. Except that I'm wasting my time and the city staff's time. So I would recommend we eliminate this today and not even have a conversation anymore about it, because I don't want the city to be embarrassed repeatedly in the newspaper with stupid things like this over nonsense, and make sure that when somebody goes somewhere, I know it's a little extra step, but if somebody's going to go somewhere, I think that should be approved by the council, because otherwise we're going to be in the newspaper again and again and again. So rather than focusing on the big issues, here we are again in the comfort zone of one person who doesn't know how to act responsibly. That's my recommendation.
Well, the only thing I would say, Jim, in response is that I have no problem having a discussion to establish a policy with some limitations if it actually works. But we have a theoretical policy today with $1,200 limits that absolutely doesn't work. So I don't care. I really agree with Eric. I think we ought to just eliminate it. If people want to go somewhere, just bring it to the council. We'll approve it, and we can get out of the newspaper on this thing. But I also don't mind if you want to have a discussion and set a reasonable limit. That's okay with me too.
Well, I don't disagree. I think my understanding is that just do away with it. If there's going to be travel, you bring it to a request, council approve it for the council.
That's the way it should
Manager's
be.
going to take care of staff, council will take care of council. Is that my understanding? Second. That's a motion.
Is that a motion?
Use the motion.
Yep. All right.
Is there a second?
Second?
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
So I still have some comment. I'm glad you guys wanted to end the discussion early. There's a lot of finger pointing, and as a full-time council member, Mr. Negretti, you like to point the finger a lot, and you forget that you speak from your own, and you too participate in the childish remarks like every other council member, so you're no exception. So thank you for letting your true colors be known as well. And whatever it takes, you know, that's how it's going to be. And hopefully we have candidates that are actually able to serve a population, hopefully on a full-time basis rather than a part-time. I think the community does indeed deserve a lot of our time, which is 100%. A lot of the time we spent 40 hours at work. By the time we come here, we think that other person's questions are childish, but we forget and we fail to understand that the electoral process is fair, and I was voted just like he was. So for him to be attacking another council member shows immediately the lack of teamship that he would render in this regard. However, all that said, you know, I'm still willing to work with each council member. On different occasions I've tried to sit with them, but it has never been a possibility. So what you see up here is we've never had one discussion together. And so being probably of the opposite side, I'm going to continue to ask absolutely all the questions, and they can go ahead and target me as much as they want. I'm not here to represent them precisely. I have an electorate of over 8,000 people that voted me. I'm here until 2020, and those are the people that I'm protecting and striving to continue to represent. So regardless of the up here pony show that you get and you give, hopefully that inspires a lot of you to start running for office and start looking at what we have up here. And if you don't like it, definitely change it. Tell your friends and family members, whether it's to vote people in or vote people out. That's what's most important. That's why I videotape all of this, so that the community can realize what it is that we're seeing. We're more than what we have in this room. A lot more. 130,000 people, which only 44,000 are registered to vote. As I continue to go and get people registered to vote, that's another one of my council member jobs. So thank you.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, if I might, and as it relates to the motion and the direction, I do have a question as it affects the administration. Under my authority, I have approved some travel already for Councilmember Gomez. I believe there's a trip coming up in June to attend a league event. I believe it's the end of June, probably in Monterey. It's in Northern California. I think it's Monterey. So that being said, and that was done so under the budget that was approved in February, the budget amendment that was approved that provided additional, and it was actually in response to a request I made of you all asking what you wanted to attend. So under that authority that had been previously given to staff, there is one outstanding, so I'd just like a little bit of sense from you as to how you would like to handle that, honor the approval or discontinue it.
You would have to agendize that. We have policies and rules. So any kind of discussion that we would have on that would be influential, and we would be in violation of the Brown Act.
Actually, there's going to be several steps. Assuming the motion carries, we're going to have to bring this back in terms of a policy manual revision, so that could be addressed at that time if that's...
No, I don't care about a June event. I mean, this thing is one more isn't going to happen. I don't want to override a decision you've already made. Personally, that's my opinion.
Curious, what? Tell me later. What meeting? I don't know anything about it.
Well, I'd like to add one more comment since we had to put this process in place too. Anyway, so I don't know whether to start laughing now. Every time something like this happens, there was a lot to unpack in that last comment by Councilmember Gomez. It's just comedy here to listen to that. It was funny because we went all over the place, and I thought we were trying to stick to item D11, but again, we're being subjected to the bizarre ramblings of someone who may not comprehend what it is we're trying to do here.
If there's a motion and a second, and because of the discussion, perhaps it'd be a good time to call for the vote again.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Ms. Gomez voting no.
Okay, we move on to item D12, discussion regarding the auditor's report of going concern as it is related to the 2016-2017 audited financials.
Madam Mayor, prior to hearing from the audit committee, I'd like to make a comment since I requested this be put on the agenda. There was an article in our local newspaper that stated that questioned Victorville's ability to pay the bill, and indicated that may have difficult paying bills, according to the audit. Also talked about that the income is down and expenses are up. It kind of caught me off guard, and I did get several phone calls about, are we sure we're going to pay the bills? Are we going to cancel contracts? And so I thought maybe I had glanced at the audit wrongly. So I went back and looked on page 3, and sure enough, it says on the bottom of page 2 that strong sales and new business addition boosted sales tax revenues in the city. The current pattern of increases will continue through the remainder of fiscal year 2018. Property tax revenue are also continuing to grow. So I thought maybe I missed something in the article, but of course that's not mentioned. The public reads items and sometimes panic not knowing what exactly is going on, and that's why I requested that this be put back on the agenda to clarify issues, that tell it exactly like it is and not what it appears or may or looks like. Income is up, property taxes are up, sales taxes are up. And I don't know of a single bill that we have in the general fund or the general budget that we haven't paid. The bond issue from the base is outstanding because they did away with redevelopment, but staff has assured us everyone will be paid, and they're slowly paying that up each year. So I just felt it needed to be said, and I'm sorry I didn't want to take away from members of the audit committee, but I requested this specifically to clarify that item. Thank you.
Well, you explained it very well, and there is no, they said concern, but I don't see a problem.
Well, I have to say, in the almost 50 years I've been involved in public accounting, I have yet to find any more than one newspaper that does a good job of reporting financial issues and financial statements, and that's the Wall Street Journal. And unless you go there, you're just not going to get a local newspaper that understands enough or has the horsepower to fully appreciate the issues in an audit report. They're complicated. Auditors speak a language that's, except the fact that it's English, is pretty much foreign to everybody else. But the going concern issue is one that has been with us since I've been on the council. I want to tell you a little about going concern, what it means. We have accounting standards and we have auditing standards. The accounting standard says the client, the entity, the city of Victorville and every other city and every other company has to consider things that have occurred in their operation that create a threat or uncertainty about their ability to continue in existence as a going concern. This has been with us a long time. That's the duty of the client to consider those things. If we have issues that threaten our existence, our duty is to report those things to you. And we do them in the financial statements in the form of a footnote disclosure, okay? And it's a lengthy disclosure because there are a lot of elements to it. It's not predicting the future, but it is disclosing future uncertainties that we need to be concerned about. Now, that's the duty of the entity. The auditor has a similar kind of duty. When they're auditing the financial statements, they have to decide, number one, are there threats and risks and uncertainties that create doubt for the client that they're going to continue? If there are, we have to look at the note disclosure that the client did and say, is this enough? Does this tell the reader everything they need to know? If it's not, we go back and lean on them until they've gotten everything in there that needs to be there. Then as the auditor, I have three choices. One of them is to say, the footnote disclosure is enough, I don't need to do anything more. A second choice is, I think it's a big enough issue that even though I believe the footnote is okay, I'm going to do what I call an emphasis of a matter in my report to draw the reader's attention to go read that footnote, to understand what the going concern issue is. My third option of the auditor is, as the auditor, is that I think it is so serious and that the risks are so great that I think possibly in the next 12 months this entity might fail. That's been our standard for years. And if I think that, then I use words like substantial doubt, and I say these issues raise substantial doubt about the entity's ability to continue in existence. And then I modify my report and I say, in my opinion, except for those uncertainties, the financial statements are a fair presentation. So those are three choices. For a long time, our auditors did the except for modification of the report. They said, we think this is so serious, it could fail. We were issuing this report in April, 2 months before the next year end. It was obvious the city of Victorville wasn't going to fail in the next 2 months. So we wrestled with them on that language. Can you stop doing that? If you want to draw attention to it, just do an emphasis of a matter. Our auditor in this current year decided to go to the emphasis of a matter, and they stopped modifying the report. Okay? I think that was an important issue. I did not want them to drop it or ignore it or blow over it or just let the disclosure be enough. I think the going concern issues in the city of Victorville are serious. But you got to understand which ones are serious. In the auditor report, they mention three. They talk about the bond problem at the debt. Let me make sure I get the right one. The bond problem at the debt, the recurring losses at the airport, and the net pension liability. Well, the bond issue at the airport does not affect airport operations. The bonds at the airport can only be paid off by tax increment. That's written in the document. The airport doesn't have to use rental fees to pay the bond payments. The city will never put a penny in to pay those bond payments. They can only be paid by tax increment. And sooner or later, they will be paid. And staff, George did a great analysis in this staff report that shows how we were high in 04, 5, 6. We took a dip after 08, and we're back on the rise. And in the next 3 or 4 years, we will probably cure our default situation with the bonds. What's happening is we're using the tax increment we get in April to pay off the remaining amount that we didn't pay in December. And that shortfall is getting smaller and smaller year by year. The bond indebtedness will never cause the city of Victorville to fail. It's not a going concern issue. It'll never impact the operation at the airport. Operation at the airport is fairly healthy. Rental income, expenses, pretty positive. The thing that creates the loss is the depreciation on the assets. But those assets are paid for, so we're not writing a check for the depreciation, we're just charging it. That's causing a loss. That's not going to cause the airport authority to fail. There's only one item that really presents a risk of failure for the city of Victorville, and that's the pension liability. It's the pension liability. 5 years from now, we're going to have and this isn't even reducing the unfunded liability. This is just paying what we're absolutely required to pay on an annual basis. 5 years from now, we're going to be paying $5 million a year more than we are today for the pension liability with presumably no increase in staff. Okay? There are some things that are working to mitigate that, frankly, Eric. One of them is the pension obligation for our firemen is going to be significantly less than the pension obligation that we're paying for every month for county fire. Because if I'm getting my numbers right, their pension obligation is somewhere around 60% of the labor dollar. Ours is going to be about 17%. Am I in the right ballpark?
18% for ours and
18?
And 65%.
65. So there's a big factor there. But for the city of Victorville to find another $5 million in 5 years to pay that pension obligation, means probably, unless we see that kind of increase in revenue, we're probably going to have to find some service to cut. We could cut the parks. We could close all the parks, and we would not have enough to fund that liability. We could stop doing street sweeping entirely. Still wouldn't have enough to fund that liability. There are services that we're going to have to deal with in the future in order to cover that liability. And this problem is just going to get worse. It's going to get bigger and bigger. PEPRA has helped because new employees are coming in at lower benefits. There is an argument that if the investment account at PERS performs better, that will help. My own opinion is that this thing is going the way of Social Security. Day will come when there won't be enough people paying into the system on a daily, monthly, annual basis to pay the benefit payments that are due this month. It's got to happen to Social Security unless they raise the age. I mean, they tinker with that. It's the same issue. There are people who believe our unfunded liability in this state, in the state of California, is somewhere between $400 billion and $1 trillion. And it's that wide a range because it's so hard to calculate. It's almost impossible to estimate that number. We've got a pension liability calculator. It's a lot more tolerable than that. What is it, George? 35 million? And an OPEB liability of maybe another 25 or 30?
That's correct. What we booked this year as part of the financials that were posted that you described was 40. It's actually in the staff report. Give me 1 second.
As a point of order, are we keeping track of that 5 minute?
What's that?
I don't believe we are.
I guess I'm talking about things she doesn't want to hear, so I'll just go ahead and shut up. I guess I've probably said enough because she isn't interested in even the things I'm talking about. So
I can
I'm going to violate our 5-minute rule.
just add, however, this is not unique to Victorville. It applies to virtually every city and county in the state of California.
It's a staggering problem, and it cannot continue kicking this can down the road, folks. Really all I got to
Anyone
say
else
about that.
have any comments?
Oh, this was interesting. I thought I'd add this. I looked up the audit report on the United States government this afternoon. The audit report on the United States government. The U.S. government has been audited by the General Accountability Office, they call it now, General Accounting Office, for the last 25 years. For the 25th year in a row, they had a disclaimer of an opinion on their audit report because the records are so bad and the internal controls at the U.S. government are so inadequate that nobody in the GAO trusts any of the numbers. I mean, I'm overstating it, but only a little tiny bit.
I really do appreciate you. Thank you very much. Anyone else have any comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm going to, if you don't have anybody else. I am. You don't have to direct me. I'm going to. I'm looking at my notes right now. So in regards to talking about the unfunded liability, it's very interesting because we pick and choose as council members that are vested what we want to describe and tell the public and how we narrate it, regardless of your size or not your size. So 2 weeks ago, we're talking about the pension obligation. Just a couple of weeks ago, in regards to the pension obligations, they are very expensive and we still are paying them. And looking through the agenda, I know that Jim Cox was the city manager for 3 decades. And I noticed that he still gets reimbursed $369. And so I asked for documentation in regards to how much he's been getting, because all this doesn't make it to the news, but my travel expenses do. So I figured, well, let's get it more rounded and let's see if I can get any information. And so when I noticed the $369, I said, well, he was an employee, so he's going to receive that. Okay. And I kept digging a little deeper. And I noticed that our former council member for 27 plus years, Terry Caldwell, also gets that 369. So as curious as I am, always asking questions left and right, trying to apprise the information to be thrown out there, I realize that council members get a lifetime of health pay, which contributes to this unfunded liability, which really troubles me because we say we're so worried about money and money and money, but you realize it's not about money. It's about who speaks and who talks and who doesn't know how to keep their mouth shut. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to let the public know, because let's let them know and keep us accountable for the information that I have all the time to read 1,000 pages, but not everybody that has a 40-hour job has the time to read all those pages, and let alone will not consider themselves an expert. And so that's all I wanted to say. Unfunded liability, council members, full for your rest of your life? Really? Well, it's really good if you're going to be a council member on this side, because now you got all your health care, right? You don't have to worry about it. It's so expensive. Thank you.
I'm confused. What councilmen get what the rest of their life? Oh. Okay. I raised a lot of questions. We need the answers. I didn't know council was in the retirement system and got payment their whole life.
I believe what Councilmember Gomez is referencing are medical benefits from your retirement as an employee. That's what's actually being.
Terry Caldwell is not an employee.
And so I'll look into it, but I believe Terry Caldwell did possibly receive how long was he on the council?
Had this discussion. I'm not sure why we have it right here. I'm not stupid. I know what I heard.
No,
so please, let's not go that way.
I'm just saying that the benefit, particularly for Councilmember Cox, was as a result of his employment. The benefit for Terry Caldwell could possibly be as a result of his time on the council. Right, and that's all I'm just bringing to light. I'm not trying to cause any trouble to anyone. I'm just trying to say we pick and cherry pick what council members want to pose. I know I'm a threat to you guys. I get it.
Threat to me.
I get it.
No, you
okay.
think you are.
This is just my first year. I don't think I'm a threat to anybody. I'm just asking the questions that any newbie would come and want to expose to the people. There should be nothing to hide about that. At least I don't think.
Anyone else? Do we make a motion on this one here, or just?
This is just for discussion only, so I think we're
Just for
fine.
discussion? Okay. Now we come to public comments, and I do have a couple of cards and one that I missed. I apologize. The first one is Janet Oliver. She's still here? She's not here? Okay. Deanne Hudgens, and then Robert Harriman.
Good evening, council members, staff. At the last meeting, I was appalled that Councilman Negrete abstained from voting on 2 agenda items. I went home to review the tape because I wasn't sure which ones they were, and they were both fire service items, which in my opinion is public safety. And I'm kind of new at attending meetings. I've attended them sporadically over the years, but I've actually attended several in a row. And actually, that answered my question tonight, but Mr. Negrete, I don't know if this is the first time or if it's common for you to abstain from voting. To abstain means more than I choose not to vote. It means I will not participate in the decision at all. It is supposed to mean that the member with voting rights has a conflict of interest with the motion and wishes to protect his integrity by not participating in the decision. This should be shared prior to voting, and the member should even step down from the dais. To abstain does not include such situations as, this decision involves a friend's interests, and I don't want to vote against my friend's interests. Or, I am so disgusted with the potential results of this vote that I will show my disapproval by not voting. Or, I am too lazy to prepare before the meeting, and I have no idea what this decision involves. Abstaining from voting could indicate a personal conflict of interest, meaning the member may receive a potential gain which other voting members may not receive from this decision. And voila, this comes in the mail yesterday. I thought interesting, the mailer cleared up a question of mine. It says, right here, Daily Press, quoting Councilman Eric Negretti, November 25th, 2017, the simple cost of having your own fire department was not desirable 10 years ago. It is not desirable, in my opinion, now. County Fire's $100,000 contribution certainly could have influenced your abstaining on these items. Do you really favor continuing to contract with County Fire in spite of the fact that there will be a $153 parcel tax with up to a 3% yearly increase?
You have 30 seconds.
I'm sorry? Okay. Without voter approval, and they will do whatever they want with their tax dollars. My expectation of an elected council member is that they attend meetings, make a decision on an agenda item, and vote. If doing that is a problem for you, Mr. Negretti, you should not sit on the city council. Thank you.
Next person is Robert Harriman.
Good evening, council. Okay, Mrs. Gomez, I'm going to let you have it. You're against raising the purchasing authority, yet you want to spend 4 times on travel than any of the other council members combined? You say you're looking out for the people. That doesn't really sound like it to me. Now, does it? You haven't knocked on my door. I raise questions here all the time. You haven't come to me and asked me nothing. You don't care about me. You don't care about anybody unless they're in your sanctuary agenda. We all know that's true because you're in the paper going to other council meetings. Must be an important issue for you. You're worried about a 5-minute limit. You ramble on for much more than 5 minutes. It's not a big deal, huh? Only when somebody else is doing it. I'm getting rather annoyed. And again, I'm going to come up here every council meeting, and I'm going to ask you to step down and resign. You're blocking things. $50,000 you're worried about? A damn car. So you think the council has the time to go over every little thing? I believe that's what I understood you said. So obviously you don't know the way things run economically as far as getting things done around here. I have to stand by Mr. Negretti in the aspect that you're nothing but a troublemaker, so I ask for you to step aside. Let's put somebody in office who can get along with people, and we can put our heads together, and we can do things positively instead of listening to your negativity every council meeting. I'm sick of it. Now, you have a comment, you come see me after, okay? You say you haven't knocked on my door again, like I said. You won't even look at me. Yeah. Okay, council. Good evening.
Thank you. That was the last card that I had. We will now have our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. A few items coming up that you and the public might want to be aware of. Shredfest and Mulch Giveaway is scheduled for Saturday, May 5th, 8 a.m. to noon. That's at the Murph on Abbey Lane, 17,000 Abbey Lane. That one's sponsored by Burtech. It's an opportunity to shred all your documents. You can also dump off or leave behind your computer appliance, mattresses, anything that's bulky. And that's on the 5th of Saturday. There is a curbside recycling contest. It's actually an opportunity to win $100. More information can be found at victorvillerecycles.com. The event is called the Right Stuff Curbside Recycling Contest. That's also sponsored by Burtech. And then finally, just recently, we mailed out our rec pages and city guide. We mailed it out to about 44,000 addresses. It's a 36-page document that highlights all of the various parks and recreation activities, classes, programs. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check your mailbox. It's probably sitting there waiting for you to read it. So
Sorry, what's the time Saturday?
This Saturday at the Murph, it's 8 a.m. to noon.
Thank you. Now we move on to E3, which is discussion and possible action regarding items for the upcoming City Council agenda. And I'll start to my left. Ms. Gomez. Did you have anything?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. I'd like to ask for the council's support to put an agenda item for the city of Victorville to oppose SB 54 at the next council meeting. The sanctuary state. Oh, yes, I make a motion to put an agenda item on the next city council meeting for opposing SB 54.
I'll second the motion because I don't have any objection to a discussion.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. Any further comments?
Comment? Would staff provide me a copy with SB 54, please? I have the heading and the title and the subject matter, but I haven't seen the bill itself, the whole bill.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Ms. Gomez voting no.
Anyone else have any? We move on to E4, reports from council members, 5-minute time limit. I'll start with Ms. Gomez.
Sir, you have absolutely no regard and respect for women, let alone authority. $5,000 a year? What's your math for $50,000 a year? I don't ramble. I get called out. 5-minute limit. No one else does. You just choose to see otherwise. Has anyone else in this council knocked on your door? No. I see you as a troublemaker. Yeah, you won't even look at me either.
I'm sorry.
As a former council member, and those are part of my reports. You're
report?
taking my time, yeah.
You're
So
insulting.
abstentions. It may be tempting to abstain because of concerns about making an unpopular decision, or simply not knowing which decision is best. Nevertheless, making decisions is what officials are elected to do, and it is manifestly unfair and unethical to abstain. Mr. Negretti abstains quite often. As a former candidate to the City of Victorville and now a successful vote of the people in this seat, I offer my help and experience to any candidates wanting to run. I render my help at any local level of the municipalities. I'm involved in voter registration drives and in different cities, helping non-voters' voices get the registration, the voice they need. You can contact me. I'm here to help you, whether you're watching online or through social media or through any of the city's websites, or whether you're here. 2 weeks ago, I attended the legislative day with the League of California Cities, and I had the pleasure to meet with various senators and assembly members along with our state representative. I'm happy to continue to represent the citizens of Victorville and will continue to do so, advocating for the entire residents in Victorville. Thank you.
Madam, go ahead. I'd like to say this. I gave it some thought today, and I think I need to say this. We all received yesterday something that looked like a campaign mailer. It was a particularly vicious attack on Jim Cox and his cronies, and I hope, that included me. This is a man who has spent most of his adult life working for the health, prosperity, and the betterment of this city. Took it from almost nothing to where it was when he retired. Then he came back and pulled the fat out of the fire when we were in serious trouble. I think we know where this mailer came from. At least I think I do. But I can't prove it because the people who wrote it didn't identify themselves. All they gave us was a P.O. box. Now that probably violates all kinds of campaign laws in California. But I think they probably had a couple of good reasons for not identifying themselves. The first one was it was full of a ton of false and inaccurate information. I mean, the right word to call them are lies, but I hate that word. I don't like to use it. It gets overused. It was just false. All kinds of, even when they had a sliver of fact that had some truth to it, they twisted it so badly that what was left when they were done wasn't even close to the truth. Okay? So they were clearly not comfortable with the information, or they would have identified themselves. They also didn't want to be known because they'd have to be accountable for the statements they made. And I think they didn't want to be, which says to me they're cowardly. They hide behind a post office box. When I thought about it, it made me think of cockroaches. Cockroaches crawl out of dark holes and dark places when nobody can see. They do whatever dirty business they do, and at the first ray of light, first time light shines on them, boy, they're gone. They're scurry, hiding back in their dark holes. They're cowardly creatures. They're disgusting creatures. And they made me think of the people who wrote this campaign mailer. I think they're cut from the same cloth. These people can throw dirty punches, but they don't have the courage of their convictions to stand up and take a punch because they're hiding. So this is just a word of caution to our community. These are people who live in a dark place, and if you support them and follow them, they're going to suck you right into that same dark place.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have some quick comments. I am shocked, but I appreciate the feedback from the public on abstentions. And I can assure the public that I take this responsibility very seriously. It's our solemn duty once we get elected to work together on behalf of the city. And I guarantee you, maybe something's lost in translation. And if something is, if anybody from the public ever has any questions about anything I've said, they are certainly welcome to get a hold of me through the city or through email. This is a great responsibility when you do this, and there's a lot that goes into it. Some that's obvious to the public, some that's not. And just because somebody says something up here, you know, sometimes certain people will hear what they want to hear, and things can get misconstrued really easy. But I appreciate the feedback, and again, I'm available at all times. But so twice, Councilmember Gomez mentioned something about abstaining being unethical, which is, it's just hard to listen to. I'd like to echo what Robert said earlier. This is not once in a while, folks. These encounters with Gomez have been every single event since December 6, 2016. And it's always been one-sided. And I believe that she thinks that that is acceptable behavior. So she is calling me unethical about voting and abstaining when she doesn't even comprehend the totality of the issues. But whatever. Let's just get past that for a second. This is the same person that threatened the mayor and I, physically threatened the mayor and I in our council office on 20 March. I was so concerned about Mayor Garcia that I had to step in between Mayor Garcia and Councilmember Gomez. And at that point, let me make it clear for the record, I felt physically threatened. I was being challenged, and dealing with a council member who was in a fit of rage goes beyond the pale. Mayor Garcia should not ever have to be subjected to this type of behavior where you are worried about your safety. To the great service that we all do up here, we may not get along. There may be issues that maybe we just can't see eye to eye on, and that's okay. I've got to vote. I'll state my opinion, and that's it. But at no point did I sign up to let Mayor Garcia be attacked by another council member, much less myself. But this bizarre behavior, this unhinged, mentally unstable behavior, is not something that we witness once in a while. It's, let me make this clear, every single event, meeting, in public, non-public, whatever. So, quite frankly, it's a little tiring for all the stuff that I've done, all the service I've done to my country to continue now with the Army, coaching and doing all the different things that I've done. To actually have to come in here and wonder if someone's going to be unhinged, or if they're high, or if they're able to make regular, reasonable decisions. Workplace safety is an important issue. I never thought we'd have to cross this line, but there's signs. Look at the signs that are up there. There's a conduct policy. There's all kinds of things we've had to do, and it doesn't stop. So it's a little hard to listen to someone saying a particular vote is unethical and take exception with me, which was just ridiculous, when that person just threatened me on 20 March. And the mayor.
You have 30 seconds.
So I'm a little exhausted. And I said it in the newspaper. We will continue to do the business of the city and tolerate this, although I don't think we should have to. And secondly, every single incident that this person raises, there will be consequences.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did receive this publication you're talking about in the mail, and I will have more to say later. I don't want to take up the time tonight. I was really amazed that individuals could out and out lie. And again, I hate to use the word. And I wondered when I was looking at this piece of slime, what kind of people would do that? And I think I know who put it out. I'm going to find out. I have an individual who knows who, and I'll get it in writing. If it's who I think, I have the following question. Would you trust your health, safety, welfare of your children, your parents, your spouse to someone who would do such a thing? I don't think so. Have more later.
At this time, I adjourn the meeting.